Welcome back to the 2-Minute Warning, episode 483, back on the topic of the NFL today. Today we're going to be talking Cleveland Browns and what free agents they should look at targeting as this offseason comes to a close. Before we get into that video, question of the day, back on the topic of fights, staying within the Browns today, looking at the backfield, and we want to know who you guys would think, or who you guys think would win in a fight between Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, the best backfield in the NFL. Comment below your answer, and at the end of the video, Jay and I will give you our winner for that fight. But Jay, who do you think, free agent-wise, the Browns should look at targeting?
Really, this entire video, we're just kind of being greedy. I think the Browns had probably one of the most underrated free agency moves this season, adding John Johnson, adding Troy Hill, adding Malik Jackson, adding Takkarist McKinley. This team is really stacked, so really, yes, we are being greedy, but every team can have improvement. And to me, a name that sticks out right away is Richard Sherman. I know he's not the same guy he was with the Seahawks. I know he wasn't the same guy he is with the Niners, and he's coming off an injury, and he's 32 years old. He's lost his speed, and I don't want to say he's lost his fight for the game, but Richard Sherman had one of the best dog mentalities in the game. You saw him against the Seahawks, very public with how he plays, and I just feel like at the end of his career, he's been a lot more quieter. So overall, the Browns don't need him, and therefore that's why he works. He's not needed for his speed. You got John Johnson, you got Denzel Ward, you got Troy Hill, you got Greedy Williams. Richard Sherman would just be another player in that secondary. You're not looking at him to be the number one guy. You're not looking at him to take on the number one receiver, such as a Devontae Adams or DK Metcalf that runs a 4-3. Have him take up the second or third best receiver on that team. Have him play slot corner where he doesn't have to run down the field. And just the amount of wisdom, knowledge, and mentorship he can provide for this secondary that is extremely young will be priceless. Not to say you should offer Richard Sherman a lot of money, because the Browns don't have a lot to work with. I believe right now they have a $13 million left in salary cap, and one of two things. A couple of those guys aren't factored in, such as Rashard Higgins and Malik Jackson, and they still need some money for the NFL draft. So they can't give Richard Sherman all $13 million, but an $8 million deal, a $7 million deal is reasonable. I mean, Richard Sherman is kind of on a prove-it year. A lot of guys are, where you're coming off an injury, you're at the end of your career, you're switching teams, and you're just a lot of variables, and we don't know how you're going to be. And I just think Richard Sherman has a lot of upside. And like I said, the Browns don't need him to be their number one corner. You got Denzel Ward, and then you got Troy Hill, Greedy Williams, going down the list. He would just fit into this scheme, and I think Kevin Stefanski and the Browns could use him. And Richard Sherman, I think at the end of his career, he's not chasing money, he's chasing a ring. I think the Browns are in a great spot to go for one.
Yeah, really looking at this Browns roster, we obviously know the Browns are a pretty good team. I think who's going to win the AFC North. But really looking at the roster, we realized how good of a team, how good of a roster this Cleveland team has. Jay makes a good point. Richard Sherman would help out that defense a little bit. And I think all around, it's tough to see who they really want to target, because they are strong all over the place. But the one free agent that I think would be the best addition to this Browns team would be Jadeveon Clowney. Being a Texans fan, I did watch him play with Houston for several years, where he was not really the guy we expected him to be. Taking him number one overall out of South Carolina, he was supposed to be this absolute beast on the field. And not that he didn't turn out to be that skill-wise. He couldn't stay healthy. He got injured. I think he only played 2 games his rookie season with the Texans, of course. So that is why I think the Browns should target him, which sounds weird, but he won't be that expensive. Obviously, Jay, I don't know if you touched on it, but the cap space for the Browns, they don't have a lot left, and they do need to save some for the draft. I know you said that. So he wouldn't be that expensive, but the potential is there if he stays healthy, which I think is a risk the Browns should be willing to take if it's only for $3, $4, $5 million. He has only played 16 games once in his career. That was, 2017 with the Texans. But when he did, he got 10 sacks. I think that's a huge number, especially for a linebacker. And I think the Browns could really use the linebacker help. Of course, their front line with Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson, and then the defensive secondary, adding Troy Hill with Denzel Ward and Greedy and John Johnson. The secondary's there. The D-line is really, really good. I think the linebacker could use a little help, and I think Jadeveon Clowney provides that inexpensively. So you do have to take the risk that he stays healthy, but if he does stay healthy, physical size and skill is there. Like I said, just a matter of can he stay healthy.
Yeah, and that's exactly a great point. Overall, free agency is definitely in the back half of the market for sure, and the Browns don't have the most money by any means, so they're really, to me, with the little bit of money they have, they should go for the guys that have, a lot of upside. Take the risk, take the gamble, because your team is safe all around how it is. And there are safe plays out there. I like Steven Nelson for the Pittsburgh Steelers after they released him. He's still pretty young. He's a guy that could commit to the Browns for a few years, which rather than Richard Sherman, on the other hand, he's a guy that want to help wants to help the Browns win now and maybe 2 years. Steven Nelson, though, turning 29, isn't the youngest, but he could still play 3-4 more years. I feel like Richard Sherman has 1 to 2. Another veteran that would be a very similar scheme or similar replacement like Richard Sherman would be Casey Hayward after the Chargers release him, up there in age, but he doesn't have to be the number one guy he used to be. And not to just focus completely on the defense, even though we're focusing on the defense, I think the offense is set between the stacked receiving core of OBJ, Austin Hooper, David Njoku. They re-signed Rashard Higgins, Jarvis Landry, greatest backfield, like we said in the beginning of the video. Highly paid offensive line. But even though it's perfect, like I said, any team can add more. And really, another play that's a lot of risk but a lot of upside is Antonio Brown. I mean, he's not going to save this team. The team doesn't need him, and I seriously think he will go back to the Bucs. But to me, if you offered Antonio Brown $8 million, which is probably about $7 more million than he made last year, he would definitely be tempted, and he knows he can win a ring. And I understand having him and OBJ in the same locker room, both being a little bit of drama queens, might not be the greatest play. But like I said, Brown should take a risk, and I would think between, like we said, Richard Sherman, Jadeveon, Clowney, and Antonio Brown, there's a lot of risk to all three of those, but there's a lot of upside as well. So to me, there are a couple safe plays out there. I mean, you could look at T.Y. Hilton. He's at the end of his career, but you know what you're getting. You could look at Steven Nelson. You know what you're getting. There's not a lot of risk, but it's really just up to the Browns. They want to play it safe and just add another role player to this team, or do they want to take the gamble and maybe go to the next level?
Yeah, you mentioned T.Y. Hilton. I was thinking the same thing. I do think he might be looking for some more money than the Browns could put up for him right now. But he's on the table, of course, Antonio Brown. Looking at cornerbacks, you mentioned Richard Sherman. Malcolm Butler's on the table. I think could play the same role. He's not quite the same veteran presence, but he's played in the Super Bowl. He's played with New England, one of the best, when he was there, they were the best team in the league. He's played with Tennessee over the last couple of years, who was one of the better teams in the AFC.
The way I would see Malcolm Butler to the Browns is how we see Josh Norman to the Bills. He's not what he used to be. He's not what he was known for, but just having him on the team, you're not going to say no to it.
Which means you might get stiff-armed to the ground. But yeah, T.Y. Hilton, AB, I think both of those guys would be looking for a little too much money than the Browns would be willing to put up for him. But I think on the defensive side of the ball also, Malcolm Butler. And there's some offensive line availabilities, but I don't know if the Browns really need to. They've already really made their O-line best in the NFL.
And
so, yeah, go ahead.
My favorite guy that I probably should have mentioned earlier, but KJ Wright, a linebacker formerly from the Seahawks, could really be the guy that captains this defense. Overall, we've just been really picky so far. I mean, the secondary, it's set. It does not need a corner. The pass rush, it wasn't great last year, but they addressed it already. And Malik Jackson, Sheldon Richardson will be back, and get into Karis McKinley. And the offense is set. Like I said, the linebacker core, it's not lacking. You got Anthony Walker being the captain middle linebacker, but KJ Wright, I just think would be a great captain that can really control this front seven. I'm not sure you're going to be able to take the captain badge away from Myles Garrett, but you know what I mean. Just direct this defense on the defensive side. He's getting up there in age, but a captain on this defense is really what the Browns are only missing, and maybe a stud linebacker, and that could be solved by KJ Wright or Jadeveon Clowney. Just really depends, but I just think a mentor is really what would be the last finishing touch on the Browns team, whether it be KJ Wright or Richard Sherman or Casey Hayward. To me, a veteran play is the best move.
Yeah, I really think Clowney is... Obviously, history shows that he's not going to stay healthy. That's just how it is. But if he does, I really think that he could be a very valuable addition to this team. But that's all for the video, guys. We want to hear in the comments from you what you think the Browns or who you think the Browns should target in free agency. But that's all for the video. And as far as our question today, Jay, Nick Chubb versus Kareem Hunt in a fight. Who you got?
Pure physicality. I think Nick Chubb is a clear winner, but I'm going to go with the underdog per se in Kareem Hunt due to his experience with kickboxing. So I'm going to roll with Kareem Hunt.
I'm going to go Nick Chubb. He's bigger physically. I think he's got every physical advantage, and it's a fight. So that's going to take him to the top. Guys, thanks for watching. 2-minute warning.